Common Council member for the First Ward, and I have asked that Dr. Carpenter, who is a world-renowned environmental health researcher and founding dean for the SUNY Albany School of Public Health, come tonight and address the audience, and so I'm going to defer my comments to Dr. Carpenter.
Thanks, Darcy. I'm a public health physician. My research is focused on human disease as a result of environmental exposures. Let me first say that we all use energy and we all support economic development. The question here is, can it be done safely? And I'd like to address my comments to the air quality, which I think is the critical issue, both in the transport, but particularly in the heating of crude oil. Crude oil, as you've heard, is composed of many different compounds. And when it's very viscous, that means there are a lot of high molecular weight compounds. But there also are lower molecular weight compounds that will volatilize very quickly. And when they go into the air, we've heard that there is a vapor condensation process to catch those volatile compounds and make them liquid again. The big question I have is, how efficient is that process? If volatile compounds get into the air, we know, and a lot of what we know comes from the fracking stories. We know that people suffer a variety of diseases, primarily diseases of the brain and the nervous system, and also diseases of the respiratory system. There are 3 different syndromes that are reported from a variety of health information. That the first signs are irritability and depression. You don't need those in a poor community to start with. The second major symptoms are respiratory disease. Infections, sore throats, difficulty breathing, increased asthma attacks in the children. Now, in addition to that, we've already heard that NOx are going to be increased. NOx are gases, but they combine with sunlight and volatile organics to form ozone, which adds to respiratory disease. Now, I don't know how efficient the system is. I think those are questions that the community should be asking, because there should not be increased release of volatile organic compounds or other air pollutants. Thank you very much.
Carolyn McLaughlin.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn McLaughlin, President of the Albany Common Council, and I first of all want to thank the community of Albany for being here tonight. We put a call out and you responded, and I thank you for that. Because I do believe that had that call not gone out, DEC would not be here tonight, Global would not be here tonight. So I thank you for making sure your voices were heard. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Environmental injustice anywhere is an environmental justice everywhere. And we believe that by coming out tonight, we want to make sure that DEC recognizes, first of all, that we hold you responsible for having us here tonight, because you let us down. I believe DEC let the city of Albany down and let the South End community down by not having a conversation with us about this, not this year, but 2 years ago, when an increased number of trains were allowed to come into the Port of Albany. Ignorance is not bliss, and what you don't know will hurt you. So we need answers. We tried to be proactive 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had a community meeting and provided questions that we thought were going to be answered tonight. So I'm just piggybacking on what Councilmember Cornegay said. We provided those questions because we thought we were going to get some answers today. But I do know that this is just the start of our conversation on this issue. And I look forward to having the opportunity to have that one-on-one dialogue with members of the staff of DEC as well as global companies. We thank you for being here. We accept your apology, but it's not enough. Did the mic get cut? This is an opportunity for us to educate the community on environmental justice and what it means to them and what it means to this city as a whole. You have a right to be heard. You have a right to get answers. Thank you so much for participating in the democratic process, as Senator Breslin noted. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next 4 speakers are Jane Palmer, Darlene McGraw, Arlene Way, and George Young. Please come forward to the front rows. Our next speaker is Chris Amato.
Good evening. My name is Chris Amato. I'm a staff attorney with Earth Justice. Global is a recent arrival in Albany. They've only been here since 2007. In the last few years, they've tried to transform the Port of Albany into a massive crude oil export facility. And they have done this in a way that has ignored the local community, that has been characterized by the providing of misinformation and, in certain circumstances, false information to the regulatory authorities. And it's also been characterized by concealment of information from the regulatory authorities. And that is why we're calling on the DEC to rescind the negative declaration that's been issued for this project and to issue a positive declaration and require Global to prepare an environmental impact statement for its operations to deal with all of the environmental and public health and safety risks that are posed by operations at the Global facility. This school is within the zone of impact should there be any kind of accident at that facility. The children who go to this school every day of the week during the school year are at risk by what's happening just a few blocks away. For those of you who drove here on South Pearl Street, you could see the tanker cars lined up right behind the Ezra Prentice homes. People are living literally within feet of these tank cars. This type of heavy industrial activity and all the risks that are associated with it, both environmental and public health, really need to be scrutinized and given that level of scrutiny in a public process, which is what the EIS process is designed to do, to involve the public in reviewing these types of projects. Thank you.
Regina Dew.
Hi, I'm Regina Dew. I'm the Vice President of the North Albany Neighborhood Association. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is astounding, and I'm so happy that people are speaking up on this very troubling issue. I had a friend from Oslo, Norway, visiting last spring, and we were at the railroad crossing in North Albany, and he said, "What are all of those cars?" And I said, "They have a very dark feeling about them, don't they? And it feels like a dark energy has been entering our city, and nobody has notified us about it." And I would drive down by Ezra Prentice, and I'd see the playground with the kids and the oil tank, and I said, "Why isn't anybody talking about this?" And the Center for Disability Services, I was right down there too. My friends, I lived right here on Green Street, at 230 Green Street. I have dear friends that live right near these rails. And last summer, when I went to the safety hearing that Barbara Smith, our former councilperson, organized, the man said, one of the safety people said, "Oh, don't worry. I worry every night. I hear those train blowing, and I know my friend Georgianne, our president of our neighborhood association, lives 2 blocks from those tracks. And it's even worse up there in North Albany because they're near chemicals and National Grid. You can tell how old I am, but please hear us, have a dialogue. A dialogue isn't presenting facts and what you've done and what you've decided. You have to talk to us and notify us in a much saner way than in the back of a newspaper. That's not notice. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dominic Osolero.
Good evening, Dominic Calcelaro. I live at 35 Clare Avenue, Albany 12202. And
We have to fight to get environmental justice community represented. DEC took the word, and it's in this big volume that they gave us, that Global said it wasn't an environmental justice community, and DEC said okay. They sent him a second letter. Is it an environmental justice community? Again, Global said no, so DEC said okay. I think according to the regulations, DEC is supposed to make that decision, not Global, not the company that's applying. It should be DEC. So I'm asking for 3 things. That the negative declaration be rescinded part of the declaration. That we declare this an environmental justice community and act like it is. and also the DEC does not approve anything until the federal government gets those regulations in order, as they asked for on January 2nd of this year, when they asked for the farmability study to be done on this crude oil that's coming into these ports, because it's highly volatile, it's burning at a lot lower temperature, and now we want to heat it to 120 degrees. Makes a hell of a lot of sense to me.
Kate Hudson, Mary Finneran, John Crows, and Ralph Belfort. Our next speaker is Marlon Anderson.
Good evening, members of the public at large. My name, of course, is Marlon Anderson. You know me as a former candidate for mayor in the city and community advocate in the city. Before I make my comments, I just would like to address what Dominic said. The police being here and things of that nature, Dominic, is part of a greater environmental issue that has yet to be addressed in the city of Albany. And now that we have all our elected officials and everybody here for the cameras and stuff, I hope you would consider that. The environment in the city of Albany that brings armed police officers to public meetings. That's the type of environment and justice we need to be seeking in a community that has high unemployment, lack of community resources, and things of that nature. That's a great environmental crime as anything that's going on in the Port of Albany. So let's have a little bit of attention to that from our elected officials in the future. Now, as far as the oil issue goes, we have a frame of reference to that. In 1984, jet fuel was heated at the Port of Albany, and it exploded, causing an evacuation. So, as we go forward in this process, let's use that as a frame of reference. Let's find out what the city of Albany did in response to the worst case scenario that they had in 1984. But it needs to be understood by everybody in this room that what goes on tonight does not matter. What's going on before these cameras, all this political posturing, all that, that's not what matters. What matters is what's being done between Global, DEC, and the residents that live in the shadow of this. That's going to be going forward to this. This meeting, like Vivian said, they want their questions answered. And they're not going to get answered tonight, because tonight is showtime. This is showtime at the Apollo. We're not going to get our questions answered. I'm going to keep my eye, and I encourage the DEC and Global to sit down away from the cameras, away from the politicians, and sit down with the residents of Ezra Prentice. Sit down with the individuals who are going to be in the shadow of it. Sit down with the people who feel most uncomfortable by this, and come up with a solution to their concerns, allay their fears.
Sir, your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jane Palmer. Jane Palmer.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jane Palmer, and I live in Altamont. And a big question for me was, what about the route of the trains that are coming from Buffalo and that are carrying the Buckeye oil on the CSX line? Are they going through Altamont? Are they going through Voorheesville? And a gentleman with the DEC tonight told me that no, not Altamont. Yes, they are going through Voorheesville. Okay. Many of you, I don't know how many of you have ever driven Route 85A under the railroad bridge in Voorheesville and on into Slingerlands. Okay, so I asked the gentleman, can you tell me how long these trains are, how many cars they have? Oh, 100 cars. Okay, how much crude oil is in each car? 30,000 gallons per tank car. Oh, okay. Multiply that by 100. Oh, okay. Then how much does each of these cars weigh? The older cars that don't carry quite as much, they are 263,000 pounds per tank car. Now, if you've seen that bridge in Voorheesville, it's elderly, it's rusty, it's narrow. The thought of that stuff going over that bridge I find quite frightening. And I hope that our lovely little village of Voorheesville lasts a while. But let's pray for that, okay, folks? Good night. Thank you.
Darlene McGraw.
Hi, my name is Darlene McGraw. I live in the city of Albany, but more importantly, this doesn't affect so much of where I live, but where I work. I work at the Times Union Center for security, so when I'm at work, I'm the last person that leaves. And if there was an emergency, I still would be the last person to leave, because the people that come there, they're my first priority, not myself. And also down here, if there was an emergency, who lives down here? You got people that have children, you got people with disabilities, you got elderly, you got these houses that are multiple dwellings that are close by each other. You know, this is ridiculous. And then all these homes, we have to get places. People have to get places. Public transportation. Do we want these kids playing near railroad tracks? Do we want people trying to catch a bus near railroad tracks where these trains are going at high speeds? No, we don't want to have to cross railroad tracks trying to get to our bus. Even people trying to get to their cars, trying to go to work. We do not want to have to deal with this. We do not want to have to listen to this. Why people are at homes, why we're visiting people, why we're going to our works. It's not worth it. We're supposed to be a green Albany. Albany County is supposed to be green and cleaner. New York State has a Clean Indoor Air Act. This is not how we be clean and greener. That's why we have water, air, to help make energy. Not like this. This is not how we do clean energy. We do not take oil from other places, especially other countries. We take our energy from our area, our water, our air, not other places. We don't need other places' energy. We take it from ourselves. Positive energy. Be positive.
I'm going to call the next four speakers: Susan Weber, Danielle Fulzer, Frank Sullivan, Amy Stork. Our next speaker is Arlene Way.
Good evening. I am so grateful to be here and to be part of this conversation. About 2 months ago, I had the honor to attend a meeting that included a presentation from the Coast Guard that discussed how quickly they could respond if there was a disaster in their area, how quickly they could get folk up here to address a disaster. In that meeting, I also learned that hospitals were having conversation about how to manage major contamination, mass contamination. I thought I would faint because I had no idea all this stuff was going on so close to my community. I live in Arbor Hill. I'm a member of the Arbor Hill Neighborhood Association. I work for the Arbor Hill Development Corporation, which serves Arbor Hill, Sheridan Hollow, North Albany, West Hill, and West End communities. All neighborhoods that are affected by trains traveling through, and there's potential danger there. As I consider the information and what's going on here, and I consider the zone of impact, I think about what's included. We've got major highway. We got I-87 and 787 right there. The zone of impact includes housing, small businesses, shelter for the homeless, and elementary school. I asked 3 things. One, that the DEC withdraws its negative declaration until a full assessment of the impact of environmental justice impact is assessed. 1. 2, that there is a complete assessment of potential health risks to this fragile community that's right here in the zone of impact. And then finally, I'm asking that there be a full plan for public safety, a comprehensive plan for public safety. We hear what Global Properties is doing for the part of Albany and all this planning, but we have no planning in the neighborhoods for how we would respond. And I think that, okay, we need to have that.